there. Hello, Marion and Sharon and Evelyn and Ellen. You were first on today. It's always a strange time when I click go on the live feed and then I sit there and I wait. And sometimes I have a little trepidation that nobody's going to show up to my party. Have you? I don't know if you've ever had that before. Sometimes we have a party, and at about the time that the party starts, we think, I wonder if anybody's ever going to show up to this thing. I feel that same way sometimes about Fireside Reading, so I'm very glad that you have showed up, and welcome everyone to Fireside Reading of The Sun Also Rises by me, Gildart Jackson, written by Ernest Hemingway many years ago. I've been thoroughly enjoying reading this. I don't quite know if everybody's been enjoying it, but we will start a new book. We finished this on Friday. So we finished the penultimate chapter today, and then we have one more chapter which will take 2 days of reading. So we finished on Friday. Then the new regime is we're going to take the weekends off, and we will start again on Monday with The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. And I have not read the book before. I've seen the movie, but it's by all accounts a great classic, and hopefully we'll all enjoy it together. So that starts next Monday. We read Sun Also Rises till Friday, and then the weekend off. And we're going to do weekends off from now on and see what that's like. Please tell your friends if you think anybody you know might like to join us for that book. Welcome to a fireside reading of The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, Chapter 18, Part 2. Pedro Romero had the greatness. He loved bullfighting, and I think he loved the bulls. And I think he loved Brett. Everything of which he could control the locality, he did in front of her all that afternoon. Never once did he look up. He made it stronger that way, and did it for himself too, as well as for her. Because he did not look up to ask if it pleased, he did it all for himself inside, and it strengthened him, and yet he did it for her too. But he did not do it for her at any loss to himself. He gained by it all through the afternoon. His first quite was directly below us. The three matadors take the bull in turn after each charge he makes at a picador. Belmonte was the first, Marcial was the second, then came Romero. The three of them were standing at the left of the horse, the picador, his hat down over his eyes, the shaft of his pick angling sharply toward the bull, kicked in the spurs, and held them, and with the reins in his left hand, walked the horse forward toward the bull. The bull was watching. Seemingly he watched the white horse, but really he watched the triangular steel point of the pick. Romero, watching, saw the bull start to turn his head. He did not want to charge. Romero flicked his cape so the color caught the bull's eye. The bull charged with the reflex, charged, and found not the flash of color, but a white horse, and a man leaned far over the horse, shot the steel point of the long hickory shaft into the hump of muscle on the bull's shoulder, and pulled his horse sideways as he pivoted on the pick, making a wound, enforcing the iron into the bull's shoulder, making him bleed for Belmonte. The bull did not insist under the iron. He did not really want to get at the horse. He turned, and the group broke apart, and Romero was taking him out with his cape. He took him out softly and smoothly, and then stopped, and standing squarely in front of the bull, he offered him the cape. The bull's tail went up, and he charged, and Romero moved his arms ahead of the bull, wheeling, his feet firmed. The dampened, mud-weighted cape swung open and full as a sail fills, and Romero pivoted with it just ahead of the bull. At the end of the pass, they were facing each other again. Romero smiled. The bull wanted it again, and Romero's cape filled again, this time on the other side. Each time he let the bull pass so close that the man and the bull and the cape that filled and pivoted ahead of the bull were all one sharply etched mass. It was all so slow and so controlled. It was as though he were rocking the bull to sleep. He made 4 Veronicas like that, and finished with a half Veronica that turned his back on the bull and came away toward the applause, his hand on his hip, his cape on his arm, and the bull watching his back going away. In his own bulls, he was perfect. His first bull did not see well. After the first 2 passes with the cape, Romero knew exactly how bad the vision was impaired. He worked accordingly. It was not brilliant bullfighting. It was only perfect bullfighting. The crowd wanted the bull changed. They made a great row. Nothing very fine could happen with a bull that could not see the lures, but the president would not order him replaced. "Why don't they change him?" Brett asked. "They've paid for him. They don't want to lose their money." "It's hardly fair to Romero." "Watch how he handles a bull that can't see the color." "It's the sort of thing I don't like to see." It was not nice to watch if you cared anything about the person who was doing it. With the bull who could not see the colors of the capes or the scarlet flannel of the muleta, Romero had to make the bull consent with his body. He had to get so close that the bull saw his body and would start for it, and then shift the bull's charge to the flannel and finish out the pass in the classic manner. The Biarritz crowd did not like it. They thought Romero was afraid, and that was why he gave that little sidestep each time as he transferred the bull's charge from his own body to the flannel. They preferred Belmonte's imitation of himself or Martial's imitation of Belmonte. There were 3 of them in the row behind us. "What's he afraid of the bull for? The bull's so dumb he only goes after the cloth." "He's just a young bullfighter. He hasn't learned it yet." "But I thought he was fine with the cape before." "Probably he's nervous now." Out in the center of the ring, all alone, Romero was going on with the same thing, getting so close that the bull could see him plainly, offering the body, offering it again a little closer, the bull watching dully, then so close that the bull thought he had him, offering again, and finally drawing the charge, and then, just before the horns came, giving the bull the red cloth to follow with it at a little almost imperceptible jerk that so offended the critical judgment of the Biarritz bullfight experts. "He's going to kill now," I said to Brett. "The bull's still strong. He wouldn't wear himself out." Out in the center of the ring, Romero profiled in front of the bull, drew the sword out from the folds of the muleta, rose in his toes, and sighted along the blade. The bull charged as Romero charged. Romero's left hand dropped the muleta over the bull's muzzle to blind him. His left shoulder went forward between the horns as the sword went in, and for just an instant he and the bull were one. Romero, way out over the bull, the right arm extended, high up to where the hilt of the sword had gone in between the bull's shoulders. Then the figure was broken. There was a little jolt as Romero came clear, and then he was standing, one hand up, facing the bull, his shirt ripped out from under his sleeve, the white blowing in the wind, and the bull, the red sword hilt tight between his shoulders, his head going down
and his legs settling. "There he goes," Bill said. Romero was close enough so the bull could see him. His hand still up, he spoke to the bull. The bull gathered himself. Then his head went forward, and he went over slowly, then all over suddenly, 4 feet in the air. They handed the sword to Romero, and carrying it blade down, the muleta in his other hand, he walked over to in front of the president's box, bowed, straightened, and came over to the Barrera and handed over the sword and muleta. "Bad one," said the sword handler. "He made me sweat," said Romero. He wiped off his face. The sword handler handed him the water jug. Romero wiped his lips. It hurt him to drink out of the jug. He did not look up at us. Marcial had a big day. They were still applauding him when Romero's last bull came in. It was the bull that had sprinted out and killed the man in the morning running. During Romero's first bull, his hurt face had been very noticeable. Everything he did showed it. All the concentration of the awkwardly delicate working with the bull that could not see well brought it out. The fight with Cohen had not touched his spirit, but his face had been smashed and his body hurt. He was wiping all that out now. Each thing that he did with this bull wiped that out a little cleaner. It was a good bull, a big bull, and with horns, and it turned and recharged easily and surely. He was what Romero wanted in bulls. When he had finished his work with the muleta and was ready to kill, the crowd made him go on. They did not want the bull killed yet. They did not want it to be over. Romero went on. It was like a course in bullfighting. All the passes he linked up, all completed, all slow, templed, and smooth. There were no tricks and no mystifications. There was no brusqueness, and each pass, as it reached the summit, gave you a sudden ache inside. The crowd did not want it ever to be finished. The bull was squared on all 4 feet to be killed, and Romero killed directly below us. He killed not as he had been forced to by the last bull, but as he wanted to. He profiled directly in front of the bull, drew the sword out of the folds of the muleta, and sighted along the blade. The bull watched him. Romero spoke to the bull and tapped one of his feet. The bull charged, and Romero waited for the charge. The muleta held low, sighting along the blade, his feet firm. Then, without taking a step forward, he became one with the bull. The sword was in high between the shoulders. The bull had followed the low-swung flannel that disappeared as Romero lurched clear to the left, and it was over. The bull tried to go forward. His legs commenced to settle. He swung from side to side, hesitated, then went down on his knees. And Romero's older brother leaned forward behind him and drove a short knife into the bull's neck at the base of the horns. The first time he missed, he drove the knife in again, and the bull went over, twitching and rigid. Romero's brother, holding the bull's horn in one hand, the knife in the other, looked up at the president's box. Handkerchiefs were waving all over the bull ring. The president looked down from the box and waved his handkerchief. The brother cut the notched black ear from the dead bull and trotted over with it to Romero. The bull lay heavy and black on the sand, his tongue out. Boys were running toward him from all parts of the arena, making a little circle around him. They were starting to dance around the bull. Romero took the ear from his brother and held it up toward the president. The president bowed, and Romero, running to get ahead of the crowd, came toward us. He leaned up against the barrera and gave the ear to Brett. He nodded his head and smiled. The crowd were all about him. Brett held down the cape. "You liked it?" Romero called. Brett did not say anything. They looked at each other and smiled. Brett had the ear in her hand. "Don't get bloody," Romero said and grinned. The crowd wanted him. Several boys shouted at Brett. The crowd was the boys, the dancers, and the drunks. Romero turned and tried to get through the crowd. They were all around him, trying to lift him and put him on their shoulders. He fought and twisted away and started running in the midst of them toward the exit. He did not want to be carried on people's shoulders, but they held him and lifted him. He was uncomfortable, and his legs were spraddled, and his body was very sore. They were lifting him and all running toward the gate. He had his hand on somebody's shoulder. He looked around at us apologetically. The crowd, running, went out the gate with him. We all three went back to the hotel. Brett went upstairs. Bill and I sat in the downstairs dining room and ate some hard-boiled eggs and drank several bottles of beer. Belmonte came down in his street clothes with his manager and 2 other men. They sat at the next table and ate. Belmonte ate very little. They were leaving on the 7 o'clock train for Barcelona. Belmonte wore a blue-striped shirt and a dark suit and ate soft-boiled eggs. The others ate a big meal. Belmonte did not talk. He only answered questions. Bill was tired after the bullfight, so was I. We both took a bullfight very hard. We sat and ate the eggs, and I watched Belmonte and the people at his table. The men with him were tough-looking and businesslike. "Come on over to the cafe," Bill said. "I want an absinthe." It was the last day of the fiesta. Outside it was beginning to be cloudy again. The square was full of people, and the fireworks experts were making up their set pieces for the night and covering them over with beech branches. Boys were watching. We passed stands of rockets with long bamboo stems. Outside the cafe, there was a great crowd. The music and the dancing were going on. The giants and the dwarfs were passing. "Where's Edna?" I asked Bill. "I don't know." We watched the beginning of the evening of the last night of the fiesta. The absinthe made everything seem better. I drank it without sugar in the dripping glass, and it was pleasantly bitter. "I feel sorry about Cone," Bill said. "He had an awful time." "Oh, to hell with Cone," I said. "Where do you suppose he went?" "Up to Paris." "What do you suppose he'll do?" "Oh, to hell with him." "What do you suppose he'll do?" "Pick up with his old girl, probably." "Who was his old girl?" "Somebody named Frances." We had another absinthe. "When do you go back?" I asked. "Tomorrow." After a little while, Bill said, "Well, it was a swell fiesta." "Yes," I said. "Something doing all the time." "You wouldn't believe it. It's like a wonderful nightmare." "Sure," I said. "I'd believe anything, including nightmares." "What's the matter? Feel low?" "Low as hell." "Have another absinthe. Here, waiter, another absinthe for this senor." "I feel like hell," I said. "Drink that," said Bill. "Drink it slow." It was beginning to get dark. The fiesta was going on. I began to feel drunk, but I did not feel any better. "How do you feel?" "I feel like hell." Have another. It won't do any good. Try it, you can't tell. Maybe this is the one that gets it. Hey, waiter, another absinthe for this senor. I poured the water directly into it and stirred it instead of letting it drip. Bill put in a lump of ice. I stirred the ice around with a spoon in the brownish, cloudy mixture. How is it? Fine. Don't drink it fast that way. It'll make you sick. I set down the glass. I had not meant to drink it fast. I feel tight. You ought to. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? Sure, get tight. Get over your damn depression. Well, I'm tight. Is that what you want? Sit down. I won't sit down, I said. I'm going over to the hotel. I was very drunk. I was drunker than I ever remembered having been. At the hotel, I went upstairs. Brett's door was open. I put my head in the room. Mike was sitting on the bed. He waved a bottle. Jake, he said. Come in, Jake. I went in and sat down. The room was unstable unless I looked at some fixed point. Brett, you know, she's gone off with the bullfighter chap. No. Yes, she looked for one to say goodbye. They went on the 7 o'clock train. Did they? Bad thing to do, Mike said. She shouldn't have done it. No. Have a drink? Wait while I ring for some beer. I'm drunk, I said. I'm going in and lie down. Are you blind? I was blind myself. Yes, I said, I'm blind. Well, bungo, Mike said. Get some sleep, old Jake. I went out the door and into my own room and lay on the bed. The bed went sailing off, and I sat up in bed and looked at the wall to make it stop. Outside, in the square, the fiesta was going on. It did not mean anything. Later, Bill and Mike came in to get me to go down and eat with them. I pretended to be asleep. He's asleep. Better let him alone. He's blind as a tick, Mike said. They went out. I got up and went to the balcony and looked out at the dancing in the square. The world was not wheeling anymore. It was just very clear and bright and inclined to blur at the edges. I washed, brushed my hair. I looked strange to myself in the glass and went downstairs to the dining room. Here he is, said Bill. Good old Jake. I knew you wouldn't pass out. Hello, you old drunk, Mike said. I got hungry and woke up. Eat some soup, Bill said. The three of us sat at the table, and it seemed as though there were about 6 people missing. Thanks for joining me. 2 more days on this book, starting tomorrow. Same time and place, 5 Pacific at Fireside Reading on Instagram. I can't wait, and I hope you can join me. Until then, however, do stay very well.